My name is Mark. This is Zen Talk, and we're talking about emotional identity. Okay, so let's talk about a fostered relationship. And what I want to talk about is that all of our identities are based on our relationships. That what we make with a person, like our mother and father, or a husband and wife. That we make with our tribe, your family, your community, even your nation. And that with what we make with a noble pursuit, some sort of righteous vision, that of heaven, glory, eternalism, and so on. So these relationships are often encouraged by others. These are kind of what comes from outside. And they build a sense of self. This is, your identity for a person in the world that they exist in. So this is just sort of the very core of that. The person that you call yourself, the person that when you look in the mirror and you say, that is me, or the person that you see in this world, it's often based on all of these relationships that are encouraged by others for you to be encouraged to create them. Create them with other people, create them with your tribe, family, and create them with various different noble pursuits. All right. However, these relationships can be twisted. So, twisting the relationship. Fostered relationships can be twisted for the gains of others. So, we'll go through a little bit of these relationships here. So, glamour and beauty. A twisting in the relationship of how one has with oneself. So, glamour and beauty, we know this is a big industry. A lot of women will definitely fall into this trap, into the trap of style, tribe, and allegiances. Such things as sports ball, national politics, exploit upon one's own self of sense in the world. And a lot of times, sports ball is very tribal. What team do you support? Who's your favorite team? And national politics, are you with the red party, the green party, the blue party? And these are exploited to again build identity upon yourself. And this is a thing again. This is like goes back to you're building on a tribe, you're building on allegiances, and you kind of see yourself through your relationships with these things. Your relationships with tribes, your relationship with allegiances. Commercialism. This exploits your relationships by inserting a product or a vision of oneself through their lens of reality. So, commercialism is going to come and they're going to sell you something that's going to build a relationship through their products, build a relationship with others through their vision, and you're buying into what they are telling you. Oh, well, you need to buy this makeup, for the beauty and glamour. It's usually with makeup and clothing and accessories. So these things get commercialized. And you'll see the same thing in sports ball. It can be very commercialized in national politics as well. Commercialization is an exploitation of relationships. And lastly, we have the religion and cults, exploiting a relationship you make with a living or fictional superior being, a dependency in where the figurehead is controlled by somebody else. So a lot of times in a religion, you're kind of like the major religions. You're making a personal relationship with a fictional superior being. It could be God, it could be Jesus, it could be Buddha. It can be something, but it's one where the figurehead is controlled by somebody else. Often there's a church, a hierarchy, or some sort of organization that's kind of inserted itself in this relationship, and they're telling you how to have this relationship and how you have to behave in this relationship. So they're exploiting a relationship that you have. All right, let's talk about loneliness. So The cause for one feeling alone is often in the failure to make relationships. And this is a big question of, why am I lonely and how do I solve loneliness? So a lot of times though, loneliness is just simply due to the situation and location, where relationships are few or they're distant. And that's not something that can necessarily be changed or fixed very easily. Sometimes it's just the culture and the region where maybe you're in a location or a region where outsiders are just not welcomed. It just could be, um, a small town, a foreign country. And lastly, you could just be some mental habits that you have. You have fears of rejection, past trauma, old mental wounds. And those things sort of just prevent you from making these relationships. So I bring these up because loneliness can be exploited by others for their gain. And you're going to see it all over the internet, all over YouTube, where you'll have internet gurus who are going to exploit your loneliness to get you into some courses or meditations or some sort of program that they are selling you because they are exploiting your loneliness and they have a cure or a solution for you. But I'll just tell you right now, none of that's going to work because, again, if you're in one of these particular buckets here, you have to change those buckets. You can't just take a course or buy somebody's online program or pray to somebody's deity to fix any of this stuff. It doesn't work like that. Okay, the emotional identity. So the false self is built on the identity we find in the relationships we have. In Zen, we focus, that is also a meditate, on our relationships that create suffering. And we cut the cords of those relationships. So some examples of suffering would be materialism. And this is more of the, the mental materialism that, hey, I like the blue hockey team, so I'm going to wear, the blue hockey team jersey and really identify with them that way. So I build an identity by buying materialistic objects and hanging them around my person. Materialism can also be, spiritually with, as a guy that buys the prayer beads and runs around in tie fisherman pants all day long. And, they kind of, put off this air that I'm a spiritual dude, I'm a spiritual person. And the same thing with all of the beauty and the accessories and all of the makeup and stuff like that. We get into this materialistic expression of ourself through relationships that we have. And yeah, it can be very expensive, but it could also create a lot of suffering because materialism only begets more materialism, and materialism quickly decays. In what's in fashion today quickly falls out of favor, and now you got to go get the latest, greatest fashion. So the other one is idealism. This can be, only if everybody rode the bus, only if everybody would be responsible, only if everybody did X, Y, Z. And these are idealisms in where if we live a certain way, if we do certain things, if we eat certain things, we'll all live better. So you hear it a lot within certain groups. If everybody would just share, if everybody would just stop doing something, or if everybody would think like this, then the world would be great. And idealism often leads to utopianism, in where it's the belief that if something happens, then some sort of grand society will emerge, some sort of enlightened type of civilization will be created. And utopianism is often a big driver in religions, in where, well, if everybody would just believe in Jesus, then Jesus would return. It's that's utopianism, and all these three things create suffering within our lives, and of course these again are from the relationships that are fostered. These are generally not relationships that you would create naturally. These are relationships that are kind of taught to you and pressed upon you to have upon these things. So you end up in the suffering. So in Zen, when one illuminates the suffering and cuts it, then one takes a step towards liberation. That is how in Zen we walk the path. We cut the cords of these things, the materialism, the idealism, and the utopianism, and it illuminates that suffering that's there. We may feel the suffering, but we may not know why. So this is what we do when we meditate. A lot of times we're focusing on our relationships with the false self. That's that person that you look in the mirror and you say, I don't like you today because you're really suffering about some stuff. All right, so when we talk about the Path of Zen, so when we set a foot on the Path of Zen, we are seeking a relationship with our intuitive self, the true self or the soul. And I know you're not going to hear this in the Zen centers, and they're going to say, there's no soul. Well, that's not true. The fostered relationships are always exoteric. They're the external materialistic that are often encouraged by others for us to have. And they may deny the esoteric that is within you, that is hidden and non-conceptual. And what I'm talking about here is the intuitive self. So basically, it's kind of like I said, in saying that you have no soul, and it demands that you give in to them. The fostered relationships pretty much demand that you give in to them at all times. They will deny that there's any esoteric, that the hidden within, and they tend to become consuming and petty tyrants, and if you really want to get right down to it. So your intuitive self cannot be fostered. You already have that relationship. You have that from the day that you were conceived in your mother's womb. Though in how much you have developed it and growing it, that is the path of Zen, is the development and growth of your intuitive self. Then we come to the light within. So the light of the Mahayana is the light within yourself. When you develop a relationship with your intuitive self, aka your soul, it is like meeting your best friend because you've always been together. That's what happens when you really start taking some steps on the path of Zen. So when the fostered self or the fostered relationships melt away, when you see the truth in them, that they are just nothing but buckets of suffering, the true self emerges. And this is, again, like the holy marriage, the transmission of the lamp, the enlightenment of Zen, is this emerging of the intuitive self. And this, like I said, it's like meeting your best friend. It's like the partner you were waiting for. So nobody can do this for you, and nobody can deny you either, because this is already within yourself. Nobody can give you this. Nobody can initiate this. This is just, it's here in you. It's already there. You don't need to do anything. It's, like I said, it's just this distractions that are all around you. The false self is distracted, and you've fallen into this endless mirror vision of the false self that is creating suffering. All right, well, thank you for listening to my presentation. Please remember to like and subscribe, and you can support this channel on Patreon. The link is in the first comment below.